So there's been some breaking news in the George Floyd case. That's right. It looks like all that protesting wasn't for nothing like some people claimed it was. Let's talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's been some breaking news in the George Floyd case. As you all know, Derek Chauvin, a police officer, put his knee in the neck of George Floyd for 8 minutes. And for quite some time, and rightfully so, we didn't even know if Chauvin was going to be arrested. Then when he got arrested, we didn't know if he would be charged, at least to the degree that he deserved to be charged, if even at all. Because we know how these situations normally go, right? Police officer murders an innocent black man. Police officer gets a grand jury before we can even figure out if he's going to be charged, you know, because that's how all of your tickets, your speeding tickets and your little infractions go, right? You get a grand jury before you can even begin to be charged. No, you would be thrown in jail and they will put $150,000 to $500,000 bail on your head. There's no grand jury to figure out if you should just be charged, first of all. So, and then we assume that he would get off. And given the information that had come out so far from the Minneapolis side, wasn't looking promising because they already began to blame George Floyd's death not on the knee in his neck for 8 minutes, but instead on other issues, other health issues. It wasn't looking promising. However, we now have some promising news, and this is according to USA Today. Just in, new charges in George Floyd's death. Derek Chauvin now faces second-degree murder, and 3 other officers will be charged, Senator says. The article goes on to say, all 4 police officers in the killing of George Floyd will now face charges. This is what Amy Klobuchar just put out on Wednesday, which is today. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is increasing charges against Derek Chauvin to second degree in George Floyd's murder, and also charging 3 other officers. This is another important step for justice. The Democratic senator tweeted. She didn't have anything to do with that, by the way. Just make sure everybody is clear that Amy Klobuchar is largely the reason that George Floyd is dead. She could have had Chauvin out. She chose not to. So, the article goes on to say that Floyd's family attorney, Benjamin Crump, earlier Wednesday implored officials to hold the officers accountable in powerful remarks at the site of Floyd's killing outside of a convenience store. And let me just say as well, people in the black community are a little bit skeptical of Ben Crump, rightfully so. It's about time he got a damn victory instead of just looking for a photo op. So this is great for the family. Now, the article goes on to say that the incident has sparked mass protests over questions of police brutality and racial inequality and is shaking the nation. Once news of additional charges broke, Crump called the moment bittersweet and said the Floyd family was deeply gratified for Ellison's actions. Now, I do find it interesting that the one time we see some type of justice being attempted, because once again, you know how this story goes. The fact that Chauvin was even arrested is an anomaly in these scenarios. What generally takes place is that they're suspended with pay, so it's a free vacation. There's a GoFundMe set up for them somewhere where everybody donates, so they leave the force richer than when they came in and committed the murder, or at least the one that we know about. Then they're not even charged by the grand jury that is generally made up of people who look like them. So the fact that they were even arrested was a big deal. The fact that Chauvin was charged without having to go through a grand jury was a big deal. And now Chauvin's charges have been upgraded. And now the other 3 officers have also been charged, which we're still waiting to figure out what charges they have gotten. Now, do I find that coincidental with the fact that Keith Ellison, who, by the way, is probably worth adding, is a Bernie supporter, ran as the progressive the progressive candidate for the DNC chair position. Was a very well liked. I believe he was a representative. I don't think he was a senator, but I think he was a representative out of Minnesota, and he was a governor of Minnesota at one point, I believe. So he was well liked then too. He's a black man. He's a black man that, although he plays ball with the establishment, too often for my liking, he's generally considered a progressive, and he does advocate for progressive policies like single-payer health care, has had zero problem talking about racial injustice, especially being that he is not only a black man, but he is Muslim as well. So he's dealt with a very specific kind of racism and intolerance. Do you think that's a coincidence that when we finally get our black attorney general not beholden to police unions? This isn't like Kamala, okay, people? This is someone who lived the black experience, the African-American experience, 40, 50 years over, who is not in the pockets of corrupt police unions. We don't see a grand jury. We see arrests. We don't see this idea of, well, let's just suspend them with pay. We're not even seeing potentially bystanders getting away with it. In other words, the police that in any other scenario would be charged with wrongful neglect. For example, in the military, if someone commits an unlawful order and you are of the same rank or above, and you watch them commit that unlawful order or unlawful act, you will be charged. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, to the degree you'll be held accountable, it's up to the full bird who's in charge of your case at the court martial at the Article 32 hearing. However, there is no watching crime be committed and then you just get to walk off scot-free. So in any other scenario, they would have been charged earlier. Once again, I understand for that, you do have to go figure out a little bit more information before you just charge 3 other cops, right? Because we don't know if there would maybe Chauvin threatened somebody, if he was a superior, and there's a lot of things that could go in it. So I get it. You took your time, you did the research, you did the investigation, and now you figure, okay, all y'all got to be charged. So when A.B. Klobuchar was in charge of all this, Chauvin walks off scot-free. Keith Ellison, who's a progressive, like I said, more or less, considers himself a progressive, all of a sudden, the black man gets everybody charged. There is no grand jury. You know what else is also to thank for now Chauvin not being brought up on manslaughter? You know what manslaughter is? It was accidental. It was neglectful. You should have known better. No. Nobody wanted manslaughter. That was a murder. And I had said that at the time of the arrest. I'm like, they're going to try to charge him with manslaughter. Because then you get to say you charged him. You get to look like you're doing your job. But when you get to the essence of what took place, you're effectively letting him get off scot-free. But that's not what took place here. You know why? Because the protests are working. They say, what are these protests supposed to do? Why are these people getting down to the street? Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. There's nothing from their couch, tweeting from their phones, who've never got out to fight for anything in their entire lives that wasn't self-serving, telling everybody else what was going to happen. What are you going to do? What's going to change? I said from the very beginning, the Democrats and Republicans have lost control of this plot regarding the protests. And when that happens, when they're genuine, think about it. Lyndon B. Johnson signed the civil rights amendments passed by Congress. And this man was a bleeding heart racist. But Lyndon B. Johnson and Congress generally and genuinely feared for their lives, because that is the amount of anger that was being directed their way, and the protests were ramping up, not calming down. So he had to sign it, even though he was known as a connoisseur of the N-word. So for those who were like, oh, nothing would happen, I don't know why you're doing this. Civility, civility, civility. Peaceful, always peaceful protest. That's what, no. You have to have balance in all things in life. You have to have balance in all things in life. And sometimes that balance comes inadvertently. Because even though I'm all about peaceful protesting, that's why I said, even though I'm consistent, by the way, when it comes to this, because whenever the white people are out there protesting, you know, with their guns, and I said, look, as long as they're within their First Amendment rights and Second Amendment rights, as long as they're not wreaking havoc, I support their right to do this. I support their right to, and I mean, and if the cops would have shot at them and would have began to attack them and they would have been forced to defend themselves, I would have supported their right to do that as well. And I don't like cops because I'm consistent, unlike a lot of people. But I also know protesting historically has worked when you protest on the level that we have seen it. When it's organic to the level that we have seen it. Even though there have been infiltrators from all sides trying to come in and co-opt. This is proof that there is a level of fear building up within, on the political side, where people are now being afraid they will be held accountable, if not at the ballot box, then at their homes, at their business. All this, remember, all their addresses and stuff like that, that's public record. Every home they own, every property they own, that's public record. The businesses they own, the ventures that they are invested in, that's public record. They are worried that people will pay attention and start naming names. If they're unafraid to pull up to the White House on Donald Trump, knowing their Secret Service, FBI, CIA, Metro PD, they didn't give a damn. They pulled up on Donald Trump at the White House. You think they're not going to pull up to your crib? Democrat or Republican? Okay. Granted, I don't think you could expect this to stop just because of some charges. So we'll see. Let me get to these super chats. Let's just hope Dems don't co-opt these protests in time for November as Biden. Oh, well, you know, they've already began to take, you know, they've been trying to co-opt it. You saw Kamala Harris out there. Crazy how she stands out there with us now. But when she was taking all that money from corrupt police unions, when she was telling people at her little event in Chicago a while back, while she was Attorney General, what did she say? She was making fun of people who were saying we need more education, not mass incarceration. She was literally it was a whole speech dedicated to making fun of people who say that. That's who she is. The only thing that's changed her heart is now she has a chance to be vice president. So she got to get out there and protest. And Donald Trump's made such an ass of himself. It's easy to pretend like you have basic common sense when it comes to an issue that is so clearly black and white. As far as George Floyd's death, people's position on the protesting and how much is appropriate and that's different. But this issue itself with George Floyd is black and white. It's stupid to pretend otherwise. But then Trump goes on to not only mess that up, but then he makes an ass out of himself with the protests. And so it's super easy to, when you are not in that position, like Kamala, because Kamala as VP, Kamala as president, would be probably very similar to Barack Obama. Yeah, Barack Obama did some real sweet stuff, didn't he? Except for, y'all remember the riots in Ferguson? Because I do. Y'all remember what happened at Standing Rock? I do. Remember what happened in Baltimore? I remember. Remember what happened in New York? I remember. Remember how Barack Obama militarized the police? So he basically placated us straight to our faces on camera and on Twitter as he began supplying police forces with militarized equipment and sending them after us. I remember very clearly because I was confused. And I was grown. It's like, hold up, why is he saying this and then doing this behind our back? That doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah, it does. He's a politician. Glory Jones, thank you very much for the super chat, Glory. They put him on suicide watch too. I wonder if there's a chance he'll get Epstein in hopes that we'll stop. No, I don't want him Epstein. I want him to be held accountable. Just like I didn't want Epstein to commit suicide. I wanted him held accountable. That's not going to stop it. If anything, it's going to make things worse, because they're going to be like, either y'all assisted or you were negligent and allowed him to escape justice by taking the selfish way out. It's just like with Epstein. When you have a chance to make an example out of somebody, you somehow, some way, they're able to take the easy way out and escape accountability for everything they've done. So I'm almost happy. Once again, I'm almost happy that we have somebody like Donald Trump's ignorant self in power. Because I saw George Floyd's situation in the past. I've seen Minneapolis, what's taking place there. We saw riots, but guess what? Because they had Obama's pretty face telling us it's all going to be all right. I'm with you. They never got out of Ferguson, really. They never, remember what happened in Baltimore? They never really got out of Baltimore. But now, because Trump is a moron and made people even more riled up to the degree that they're on Capitol Hill, they're at the White House. People in rich neighborhoods are finally feeling that fear that black people and other marginalized people feel every day from the police and institution that are supposed to be protecting them. All of a sudden, everybody's getting real meanable, huh? Crazy how that works. I guess the protests weren't for naught at all. I guess maybe you make sure that this don't happen again, huh? Because we've already now, guess for all the negatives and all the different takes, all some nuance, and we have to be careful about how we go about, for all that, right? For everything that's great and not so great about these protests, they worked. And now, instead of third-degree manslaughter, Chauvin is now being charged with second-degree murder, which means that he did it on purpose. And although it was not premeditated, he meant to end human life. His intention was malicious. He is a murderer. And if he is found guilty, which, I mean, how do you not find him guilty? But if he is found guilty, he will be called a murderer for the rest of his life. Not somebody who accidentally committed manslaughter. That's not what we're talking about. That's different. If you're drinking and driving and you accidentally kill someone, that's manslaughter. Is an accidental death that you directly took part in, which if you were following the law, you would not have committed. This is completely different. Now, Chauvin will be charged with murder, and all the cops involved will have their day in court, because I do believe that they're entitled to due process. Actual due process, the process that we're supposed to get, not the exceptional due process that has been generally given to cops or politicians or elites. They're getting the same thing, hopefully, that we get. And guess what? Now you can't hide. The police unions have generally been able to control things from the background. Not so much the case with this particular case, not so much. They can't do it now. Now people's money is being messed up. Now whatever threat that police union can bring on a judge or a DA or attorney general, It's not as powerful because my money's not getting messed up. My property is getting messed up. I'm fearing for my life. This isn't just a matter of PR anymore. Whatever you can do to me as a police union, I'm more fearful. These protesters out here are showing they're willing to do tenfold of whatever you think you can do to me as a police union in this area. So do what you gotta do, but I'm gonna listen to the mob outside because there's more of them than there are of you. Now that we're starting to see some progress, if anything, this isn't the time to stop protesting. This is the time to ramp it up. It is. There are cops right now committing violent acts against peaceful protesters daily. So it isn't just time to stop when one cop gets held accountable in an extreme situation. Now it's time to go out and say the situation shouldn't have to be extreme for them to be held to the same standard as everyone else. Matter of fact, they should be held to a higher standard because they get paid to protect us and serve us, supposedly. Not get protection because they put on a uniform where they claim they serve us. LEJ, appreciate the super chat. Trump really stimulates us. Hope he abolishes police unions. Police unions shouldn't be more powerful than USA citizens or officials. Nurse Nicole Sirate. I mean, I do hope he abolishes police unions. I don't think he has the ability to single-handedly, though. I think that actually will require congressional influence. But who knows? But then again, that'll happen the day that they ban AIPAC. And I don't see that happen anytime soon. But you can definitely get out there and make it so that the police unions are ineffective. So like nowadays, you can have AIPAC influencing any politician really. But as you've seen, if you get caught, a lot of times if you're in a swing district, you'll lose your office if you consider yourself the leftist. Doesn't matter how much money AIPAC pays you. I hope they're paying you enough to live after your ass is kicked out of office. That's what's been happening. You'll get slaughtered if they think that you're anti-Palestine. So, Darren Levy, thank you very much for the super chat. Have you seen the snake warrant at the protest? No, I have not, and I'm not sure I want to see them. But of course, like I said, every candidate for VP is going to be at these protests, but which is once again something that's been pretty unique. The focus has not been on these attempts to co-opt by these politicians as they have been in the past. Remember the Women's March? It was very politician and political public figure focused. Remember at a lot of the other protests that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, right or left, it's just been very politician focused. And once again, this is how you know that these happen completely and totally organic. They didn't need a nonprofit to form a worldwide protest now. In France, they had their level of solidarity with the protesters here has been just amazing to see. So, because it could not be astroturfed, at least not anywhere near the significant degree that they've been known to astroturf, the major parties have been known to astroturf in the past, it scares the hell out of them. They don't have any control. For us, that's a good thing. Michael A. Goddard, thank you very much for super chat. Thank you. I agree with you and Jimmy Dore. I'm assuming about this protest. And if that's the case, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And for those who have been wondering why I haven't been as active on, at least on video, I've been very active on Twitter and Instagram. But for those of you who have been, avid listeners to this channel for a while, you all know that police brutality is a tough subject for me. And y'all know I cover damn near everything. And I cover police brutality. But for me, it's a tough subject to cover because I've been a victim of police brutality. And it isn't just a one-time thing. I've been a victim, you know, everybody in my life, every type of person in my life, from every type of relationship has seen it. My wife was there for my most recent altercation a couple of years back. My best friends were there when I was 21 when it happened. I was literally in the exact same scenario with George Floyd, where I was being held down with their knee in my neck. Thankfully, at that point, I did not have asthma yet. I hadn't developed it yet, or we don't know what would have happened. And they were just as unashamed, by the way, because there were 2 streets full of people watching this altercation. They held me down when because I put up a fight because I wasn't about to because I saw what they were trying to do, and they were trying to hip flip me. I don't know if y'all know what that looks like, but basically it's like a rear naked choke and then they flip you over. You see it in like various forms of martial arts. And I was not having it. And so, because I was not going to allow them to choke me from behind, they made me pay for it when I got to the jail cell. 3 or 4 cops came in there, held me down while I was in handcuffs, so I couldn't defend myself, and put my face on the bench, and just one cop beat the hell out of me with a nightstick until my tooth cracked. So these issues are difficult for me to talk about, not because they're not important to me, but because I know how real it is. And when people try and pretend like this stuff doesn't happen, I'm like, bro, I'm ex-military, went to a top 5 school in the country, fairly well dressed for a black man, you know, fairly well connected for a black man, pretty well known in politics. And it could still happen to me on any given night. So for people to pretend like it's just you got to be a little bit more successful, you just got to not be in their vicinity. Why do you fear cops? They're here to protect us. Why do you fear them? They're here to no, not in my experience. They're mostly here to look like they're here to protect you. But when it's actually time to protect somebody, they're nowhere to be found. And then, like I said, there were 2 times, or no, well, one time where I called the cop and they actually attacked me, or told somebody else to call the cops and they attacked me. Then when I was younger and I called the cops, my mom called them, excuse me, because somebody broke into my house. They did nothing. They didn't even try to do anything. Me and my brother had to take it into our own hands. Now, of course, there was one time me and my brother got into a fight. Literally me and my brother. We were at my friend's house. Me and my brother was probably 19. I was maybe 20. Brothers being brothers, because we were close to the same age. At the time, we're the same height, weigh the same. We love. Both of us could fight, so fighting really wasn't a question if we were really to do. But when the cops got there, they tried to get me and my brother to press charges on each other, and they separated us, hoping that one would press charges on the other. What? So you're there to protect and serve the community. Instead of when they saw there were 2 brothers fighting, instead of just saying, hey, y'all, got to get this together. You know, it's causing disturbance in the community. We don't want to see, you guys shouldn't be fighting each other anyway. You know, pat us on the head, say, we get it, brothers fight, but you just be more careful next time. Your brothers love each other. Go on about your business. That's not what happened. They tried to separate us and then get us to press charges on each other without telling, by the way, trying to convince both of us. True story. They tried to convince both of us that the other one was going to press charges regardless of what we decided to do. But I know my damn brother. He don't want to deal with that type of stuff anyway. But that's what the cops try to get us to do, is press charges on each other. Brothers. This is my experience. And so when I see what I've been seeing, and then I have people trying to tell me I'm actually crazy, like that those are just isolated. There's more good cops than bad cops. No, there are 3 categories of cops. There are bad cops, indifferent cops, and good cops. There are barely any good cops. Good cops are the ones that will step up and challenge bad policing, call out bad policing whenever they see it within their department. Indifferent cops are those who may not commit the injustices themselves, but they will stand by idly when someone else is committing an injustice in their department because they don't want to be affected by it in a negative way if they do speak out. So that doesn't put them in the category of good cops, but there's more indifferent cops than any of them. But there are enough bad cops with enough power that because of how many indifferent cops there are, the bad cops reign supreme and are rarely, if ever, held accountable. And that's in every community, by the way. That's in every community. Because whereas it may manifest a little bit differently in the wealthy communities, there's some bad and corrupt policing there. It just doesn't look the same because you can't get away with their money isn't coming from quotas and things like that in upper middle class to wealthy communities. It comes in other ways. Usually it's more political and concentrated. So Nizar G, thank you very much for the super chat. What are your thoughts on Keith Ellison, Minnesota AG, and his role in the charges? So I actually answered that in the beginning-ish of the video. So if you want to go back and check that out, it's there. Darren Levy, thank you very much. Do you know when Bernie and Tulsi will speak out on this issue? I think Bernie and Tulsi have both spoken out on this issue already. And I liked both of their statements. And Tulsi actually was the one who said straight up, there needs to be more than an arrest. There needs to be more than a charge. There needs to be, like, she basically said that whatever had been done at that time, even with the arrest, wasn't enough, and that everybody involved should be charged as well. So I really liked her statement, because at the time, no one had made a statement that basically was asserting, nah, his ass needs to go to jail. He needs to be put in jail. None of that good things are good, bad things are bad nonsense. So, which was great, by the way, because, you know, as a person, you know, as an advocate of Tulsi, that was probably her most powerful statement on this particular issue that I've seen from her since she's been in politics. So really appreciated that. All right, so got some other videos coming on today. Like I said, I appreciate all the super chats. This is some good news, but this means that the protests are working. So the protests are working, ladies and gentlemen, then I will ask you this: why stop? And with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. I said, hold on, we got one more super chat. Let me take care of this, because I know y'all be trying to come at me, bro. Talking about I'm not good at reading my super chats. Trump can issue an executive order to abolish police unions. He better hurry up. Blumenthal threatened to limit his power to control the military next week. Police harass me too. Blumenthal threatened to limit his power to control the military. How does Blumenthal have Max Blumenthal? I guess he must know some. I mean, he has worked in DC, so I guess it wouldn't be all that surprising to see him be able to take some type of action. Tulsi introduced legislation to unarmed cops. I must have missed that. I gotta see that. Don't tell me that, y'all. Come on, y'all know Tulsi is like, I'm already like, okay, what issue? I already be picking issues at random, like, what issue? I bet she's better than all your favorite politicians. Go ahead, pick an issue. Pick an issue. I bet she's better. Don't tell me that too. Don't tell me that one too, y'all. Okay, I don't need no more ammo to be a Tulsi supporter. But if you're gonna tell me that, Lord, baby Jesus. And people are like, I don't understand. How could you possibly like her the best? Listen, y'all, I like Bernie. I like him. I like him. I like a lot of the things that he has done. But I'm critical of him like I am of all politicians. So when you look at it objectively, I got somebody who made excuses that relies to push the 94 crime bill, because he always claimed this for the Violence Against Women's Act. But if you look at the videos, that was not the case. He was right on board with the whole, these criminals have to be accounted for. Criminals are criminals. He was right on board with it. Go look up the videos. Tulsi says, I'm gonna ban private prisons. I'm gonna make all drugs decriminalized, which those two things basically makes the 94 crime bill completely and totally irrelevant. And then if this is true, and I'm gonna look this up. If she really introduced legislation to completely unarm police officers, at least as far as firearms are concerned, then I don't want to hear it. I'm just done. Probably won't even entertain the idea that there was any candidate better. And this is coming from someone who firmly believes in the Second Amendment, who is trained to use firearms, who understands what training is necessary to maintain and use firearms responsibly, because she is an officer in the military. And currently, even though she's never deployed as one, she's an MP. She's military police right now. She's an officer for her National Guard in Hawaii, but she is an MP. And although she's never deployed as an MP, she's only deployed as a medic. She knows what training is necessary. She knows what force is too much and what is not enough. And she knows what is considered reasonable. And she's saying it's time to unarm the police. And she's an officer in the military police. I don't want to hear it no more. Bob TV, thank you very much for the super chat. I know you're paying Neek Milk. 8 times as a kid, 6 times as an adult. In NYC, and 2 times in VA. Man, it's crazy when you think about it, because I'm sure you feel like I do, Bob. Make sure y'all all go subscribe to Bob TV. You almost feel lucky to be alive. You do. If y'all have seen some of the stuff that I had to deal with, at the end of the day, you're like, the next day when you wake up in jail, but you're like, I'm alive. When the prisoners themselves are like, bro, how are you even alive right now? Because they've seen their people get arrested for, or beat for petty crimes, get the hell beat out of them. Sometimes they lose their lives. And you're like, and they were actually guilty of committing a crime. So even there, like, how the hell did you survive? So when you go through that many encounters with police brutality, when you see some people get their lives taken, kids get their lives taken after one encounter, you're here for a reason, Bob. That's for sure. Am I correct on saying Nina's son is a cop? Nina could be speaking good on establishing reforms and policy. I am not sure. I'm not sure. Nina doesn't really speak of her family all that often. She tries to keeps politics and family separated. So, think that is all the super chats. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mika Says Su Casa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. If you like that segment of Mika Says Su Casa, don't forget to like the video and smash that subscribe button. Want access to members only live streams, behind the scenes footage, and other premium content? Well, you can endorse us on Rockfin Premium, become a patron through Patreon, or you can sign up for the MCSC Premium membership through YouTube. All the links are in the description below. But hey, more than anything else, always remember,
find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance.
Find your balance. Find your balance.
Find your balance. Find your balance.
Always remember, more than anything else, find your balance.
peace.